Hey guys, tonight we plunge into a world where water hides beneath the earth, locked in India's ancient stepwells, magnificent temples that feel like secrets the desert forgot to tell. Picture yourself standing on a cracked, sun-baked plain, the air shimmering with heat, when you stumble on a stone staircase descending into shadow. Each step pulls you deeper, the temperature dropping until you're surrounded by carved pillars and rippling pools, a subterranean cathedral glowing in torchlight. These aren't just wells, they're portals to a civilization's soul. Fair warning, if you trip on those steep steps, you probably won't survive the tumble, so watch your footing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of Chandbaori, one of India's most jaw-dropping stepwells, in Rajasthan's dusty heart. It's the 9th century, and the sun's relentless, baking the earth to a crisp. You squint, shielding your eyes, as a local gestures toward a square opening in the ground. "Down there," he says, grinning like he's sharing a cosmic joke. You hesitate. Descending into the unknown feels like tempting fate, but curiosity wins. The first step is worn smooth, polished by centuries of feet. As you descend, the walls close in, etched with geometric patterns that dance in the flickering light of oil lamps. It's cooler here, almost unnervingly so, like the earth's exhaling a secret it's held for millennia. Stepwells, or baoris, aren't just holes in the ground. They're architectural miracles built between the 6th and 18th centuries across India's arid west, from Gujarat to Delhi. Historians peg their origins to the need for water in regions where rivers ran dry for months. The mainstream fact? Chandbaori, built under King Chanda of the Gurjara Pratihara dynasty, plunges 13 stories deep with 3,500 steps, enough to make your knees wobble just thinking about it. It's a marvel of precision, each level a perfect mirror of the one above, like a kaleidoscope carved in sandstone. But here's the quirky bit. Some locals swear stepwells were designed with astrology in mind, their steps aligned to catch specific starlight on solstice nights. No hard proof, but the idea's deliciously weird, right? Imagine ancient architects squinting at the sky, plotting staircases to trap celestial vibes. Historians still argue whether these alignments were intentional or just happy accidents. Nobody's cracked that code yet. You keep descending, the air growing damp. The steps are narrow, barely a foot wide, and you grip the wall to steady yourself. A faint echo of water lapping stone rises from below. These stepwells weren't just about survival, they were status symbols. Kings and wealthy patrons funded them, flaunting their piety and power. Build a stepwell, and you weren't just quenching thirst, you were etching your name into eternity. The deeper you go, the more you feel it. This isn't just a well, it's a temple, a theater, a time machine. You pause on a landing, catching your breath. A carved elephant stares at you from the wall, its trunk curled like it's about to sneeze. Bet the sculptor had a giggle chiseling that. The stone feels cool under your fingers, and you wonder how many hands have touched it over centuries. Above, the sky's a distant square of blinding light, but down here, it's another world. The stepwell symmetry is hypnotic. Each level a labyrinth of arches and alcoves. You can almost hear the ghosts of ancient builders, their chisels clinking in the dark. By now, you're halfway down, and the pool's in sight, a dark, glassy mirror reflecting torchlight. It's not just water, it's life, hoarded against the desert's cruelty. You realize stepwells like this one didn't just store water, they stored hope, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of starlight too. You smirk, imagining some ancient stargazer tripping on these steps while chasing a constellation. Better not make the same mistake. You're still in Chanbaori's cool depths, the pool surface glinting below like a dark mirror. You lean against a carved pillar, its edges smoothed by time, and catch your breath. The air smells of damp stone and faint incense, a reminder that this stepwell isn't just a water tank, it's a sacred space. You glance up at the distant square of sky, the heat up there, a world away. India's arid west, where stepwells like this one thrive, is a land of extremes, scorching summers, fleeting monsoons, and droughts that could break empires. You wonder how anyone survived here. Spoiler, it took more than clever engineering. It took faith. The mainstream fact is simple, but brutal. Northwestern India's climate forced innovation. With rainfall scarce and rivers seasonal, ancient Indians couldn't rely on surface water. From the 6th century onward, communities dug deep to tap groundwater, creating stepwells that doubled as reservoirs and temples. These weren't random holes. They were planned to capture monsoon rains and store them year-round, a lifeline against nature's cruelty. Rajasthan and Gujarat, where stepwells number in the thousands, owe their survival to this ingenuity. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some stepwells were believed to have healing powers. Locals claim their waters, blessed by deities, could cure ailments from fevers to barrenness. No science backs this, but you can imagine desperate pilgrims dipping their hands in the pool below, praying for miracles. Historians still argue whether these beliefs drove stepwell construction or just piggybacked on their practical use. Did spirituality shape the blueprint, or was it a bonus? You start descending again, steps slick underfoot. Each level feels like a prayer, a plea for water in a land that rarely grants it. Stepwells weren't just about quenching thirst, they were devotional acts. Many were dedicated to water deities like Varuna, the god of oceans, or local goddesses tied to rivers. You spot a faded carving of a lotus, symbol of purity, and smirk. Bet the artist slipped that in to impress a priest. Kings and merchants funded these projects, their names inscribed on stones as offerings to gods and boasts to rivals. A stepwell wasn't just infrastructure, it was a ticket to divine favor. The walls around you pulse with stories. You trace a chipped frieze of a dancer, her stone skirt frozen mid-twirl. These places were built to honor the divine, sure, but they also served the living. During droughts, when villages withered, stepwells were sacred banks, doling out water to the faithful. You imagine priests chanting hymns, their voices echoing off these walls, blending with the splash of buckets. It's oddly soothing, like that fan you left humming back home. You pause, noticing how the architecture shifts. The upper levels were grand, meant to impress, but down here, it's practical. Narrower steps, sturdier pillars. The builders knew drought didn't care about aesthetics. You chuckle, picturing an ancient engineer rolling his eyes at a king's demand for more flair. The deeper you go, the more you feel the weight of survival. These stepwells were born from necessity, but their spiritual aura gave them power. People didn't just come for water, they came to connect with gods, with each other, with hope. The pool's closer now, its surface rippling as a stray pebble falls. You think back to Chan Baori's 3,500 steps from last section. Imagine hauling water up that staircase. Your legs ache just thinking about it. Yet for centuries, people did it, driven by faith and thirst. You glance at the lotus carving again, its petals chipped but defiant. It's a reminder, stepwells weren't just about surviving the desert. They were about believing you could. And maybe, just maybe, that belief was the real miracle. You're deeper in Chan Baori now, the pool's edge just a few steps away. The air's heavy, cool, and faintly metallic, like the earth's holding its breath. You run your fingers along a pillar, its surface etched with precise angles that shouldn't exist in a world without lasers or CAD software. These stepwells aren't just pretty, they're engineering miracles, defying what you'd expect from ancient hands. You glance up at the zigzagging steps, a dizzying maze of symmetry, and wonder how anyone pulled this off. Spoiler, it wasn't easy, and it definitely wasn't cheap. The mainstream fact is that stepwells, like Chand Baori, built around the 9th century, pushed ancient engineering to its limits. Constructed with sandstone and basic tools, they required precise calculations to ensure stability over dozens of stories. The inverted pyramid design, wide at the top, narrow at the base, distributed weight to prevent collapse, while steps doubled as structural supports. Builders dug as deep as 100 feet, hauling out earth by hand, then lined the walls to keep groundwater from seeping through. It's the kind of project that makes modern contractors sweat. Here's the quirky bit. Some stepwells had secret tunnels, supposedly for emergency escapes or clandestine meetings. Locals whisper about hidden passages in Gujarat's Adelaji stepwell, though most are collapsed or lost. No maps exist, but the idea of a secret lair tickles your brain, right? Historians still argue whether these tunnels were real or just romantic myths. Did builders plan for intrigue, or did storytellers spice things up? You step closer to the pool, the water's surface catching torchlight. The steps around you aren't random. They're a mathematical dance, each level reinforcing the next. You imagine ancient architects, probably sleep-deprived, chugging whatever passed for coffee, sketching plans on palm leaves. They didn't just build wells, they solved puzzles. The smallest miscalculation could bury workers or flood villages. You smirk, picturing a foreman yelling, "Measure it again, Sanjay," as oxen carted away dirt. The walls tell their own story. You spot a seam where stones interlock without mortar, a technique called ashlar masonry. It's so tight you couldn't slip a blade between them. This wasn't just about holding water, it was about defying time. Monsoons battered the surface, but down here, the structure stood firm. You think back to the lotus carving from the last section. Pretty, sure, but these joints are the real art. Beauty's nice, not collapsing is better. You kneel by the pool, its depth hidden in shadow. The water's still, but you can feel the genius behind it. Stepwells were designed to manage silt, with lower levels acting as filters. Builders sloped the floors to guide sediment away, keeping the water clean. It's the kind of detail you'd miss unless you were looking. And honestly, who has time when you're dodging those slippery steps? You chuckle, imagining an ancient engineer bragging about his silt trap at a tavern. The scale hits you now. Chand Baori's 3,500 steps, mentioned earlier, aren't just a workout. They're a testament to human grit. Thousands of laborers, years of work, all for a pool you could cross in 10 strides. You glance at the walls, their angles so perfect they feel alien. Were these builders just that good? Or did they have help, maybe from the stars, like those astrology rumors from Section 1? You roll your eyes at the thought, but can't quite shake it. You stand, legs stiff, and take one last look at the pool. It's not just water. It's proof that brains and stubbornness can beat the desert. The Stepwells' silence feels like a nod from those long-gone builders, daring you to match their hustle. You grin, knowing you'd probably flunk their geometry test. You're standing by Chan Baori's pool, its dark water lapping gently at the stone. You glance up, the Stepwells' levels rising around you like an amphitheater for gods. The air hums with faint echoes, laughter, chatter, the clink of clay pots. This isn't just a temple or an engineering flex. It's a living hub, a place where ancient India came to gossip, pray, and splash around. You can almost see the crowd, traders bartering, kids darting between pillars, priests muttering blessings. Stepwells were the town square, only cooler, literally and figuratively. The mainstream fact is that Stepwells were social and spiritual epicenters, especially from the 7th to 15th centuries. Beyond storing water, they hosted festivals, rituals, and daily life. In arid regions where surface water vanished for months, these subterranean oases drew everyone, rich, poor, devout, or just thirsty. They were neutral ground, where caste and status blurred, if only for a moment, as people shared the same steps and sips. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Stepwells doubled as makeshift theaters. Locals staged plays or dances on the wide landings, the acoustics bouncing off stone walls like a natural sound system. Imagine a moonlight performance, torches flickering, and you're stuck in the cheap seats, aka the top steps. Historians still argue whether these performances were purely religious or if secular dramas snuck in. Did Stepwells host India's first rom-coms? You wander along the lowest level, your footsteps echoing. The pillars here are sturdier, less ornate, built for crowds. You picture women balancing pots on their hips, joking about nosy neighbors. Stepwells were safe spaces for connection, especially during festivals like Holi, when colored powders flew and water fights erupted. You smirk, imagining a priest dodging a rogue splash. Bet he wasn't laughing. Bet the walls hold clues. A faded carving shows a procession, figures carrying offerings. These weren't just decorations. They mark Stepwells as sacred. Many were tied to deities like Vishnu or local river goddesses, and rituals happened right where you're standing. You spot a niche with a tiny stone idol, its features worn but serene. Pilgrims probably left flowers here, praying for rain or luck. It's humbling, knowing you're treading the same stones as centuries of hopes. You climb a few steps to a wider landing, where the air feels livelier. This was the hangout zone. Think ancient India's version of a mall food court, minus the neon. Traders swapped stories, kids played tag, and elders debated politics or monsoons. You chuckle, picturing a teenager slipping on a wet step, mid-flirt. Smooth move, buddy. The Stepwells design encouraged lingering, shaded alcoves, broad platforms, even benches carved into walls. It was built for community, not just utility. The water's ripple catches your eye, reminding you of Section 2's drought-driven desperation. These stepwells didn't just quench thirst, they knit people together. During dry spells, when villages turned to dust, this was the one place you could count on. You imagine the relief of dipping your hands in that cool pool, the chatter of neighbors drowning out your worries. It wasn't just about survival, it was about belonging. You lean against a pillar, its coolness seeping through your shirt. The stepwells alive with ghosts, not spooky ones, but the kind that laugh and argue and pray. You think back to Section 3's engineering marvels, those perfect joints and silt traps. They made this possible, turning a hole in the ground into a stage for life. You grin, wondering if the builders knew their math would host dance parties. Probably not, but they'd be proud. You're perched on a broad step in Chanbaori, the pool's soft ripples below catching flickers of torchlight. The walls around you aren't just stone. They're a canvas, alive with carvings that whisper stories of gods, kings, and maybe a sculptor's bad day. You trace a chiseled vine, its leaves curling like they're still growing. These stepwells aren't only about water or community. They're galleries, etched with art that survived centuries of sun and neglect. You lean closer, squinting at a tiny monkey carved mid-leap. Cheeky little guy, stealing the show. The mainstream fact is that stepwells, especially from the 8th to 12th centuries, were masterpieces of decorative art. Builders adorned them with intricate friezes, sculptures, and geometric patterns, often rivaling temples. In Gujarat's Rani Ki Vav, a UNESCO site, every inch bursts with detailed reliefs of deities, dancers, and mythical beasts. These weren't just for show. They signaled wealth, devotion, and cultural pride, turning functional wells into stone epics. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some carvings include deliberate mistakes, like a lopsided lotus or a six-fingered hand. Local lore says artisans hid flaws to avoid angering gods with perfect work. Hubris was a bad look back then. You grin, imagining a sculptor muttering, "Oops, extra finger," while winking at his apprentice. Historians still argue whether these errors were spiritual humility or just tired hands. Did faith guide the chisel, or was it human goof-ups? You shift, your shadow dancing across a panel of apsaras, celestial dancers frozen in mid-twirl. Their stone eyes seem to follow you, daring you to keep up. These carvings weren't random. They told stories. Deities like Vishnu or Durga dominate, their presence blessing the water. You spot a multi-armed goddess, her weapons gleaming in low light. Talk about a divine multitasker. Kings slipped in their own portraits, too. Subtle flexes of power. It's like ancient Instagram, but with chisels. The details dizzying. You find a frieze of a royal hunt. Elephants trampling tigers while warriors cheer. Every tusk, every claw is razor sharp, as if the stone's still fresh. You think back to Section 3's engineering feats. Those perfect joints held these walls steady, letting artists go wild. The Stepwells' depth protected the art from surface erosion, a happy accident of design. You chuckle, picturing a modern graffiti artist jealous of this canvas. You climb a few steps, pausing at a geometric lattice so precise it hurts your brain. These patterns weren't just pretty, they symbolized cosmic order, tying the stepwell to the universe. You feel a bit woozy staring at it, like getting lost in a math problem that's also art. The carvings shift as you move. Gods, lovers, monsters, all blending into a silent saga. Some panels are worn, chipped by time or careless hands, but their power lingers. You recall Section 4's bustling crowds, how this place hummed with life. These carvings weren't just for priests, they were for everyone, traders, kids, pilgrims, who'd pause to admire or pray. A faded Vishnu stares at you, his conch raised like he's about to blow it. You smirk, wondering if the sculptor gave him that expression to mess with future tourists. The art's a bridge, connecting you to people long gone, their stories etched in stone. You sit, the step cool under you. The monkey carving catches your eye again, its tail curled like a question mark. It's a reminder. Stepwells weren't just about survival or faith. They were about beauty, about making something eternal in a world that dries up and fades. You lean back, letting the stone's story sink in, feeling like you've stumbled into a secret only the desert keeps. You're lingering on a carved step in Chand Baori, the monkey from last section's frieze still smirking at you from the wall. The air's cool, thick with the scent of damp stone, but you imagine the world above. Blistering sun, dusty paths, and women weaving through crowds, their bangles clinking. Stepwells like this weren't just art galleries or social hubs. They were sanctuaries for women, hidden spaces where they could gather, gossip, and escape the desert's glare. You lean against a pillar, picturing their laughter echoing off these stones. The mainstream fact is that stepwells, particularly in medieval India, served as vital spaces for women. In a society where public movement was often restricted, These subterranean wells offered rare freedom. Women came to fetch water, yes, but they also lingered, sharing stories, rituals, and secrets. In Gujarat's Adalaj Stepwell, inscriptions hint at women patrons funding construction, suggesting they shape these spaces as much as they use them. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some stepwells had alcoves for beauty rituals, where women applied kohl or turmeric paste, turning water fetching into a spa day. Imagine a teenager sneaking a mirror to check her eyeliner. Some things never change. Historians still argue whether these alcoves were designed for vanity or sacred rites. Were they practical or devotional? You wander to a shaded niche, its stone worn smooth by countless hands. You can almost see a group of women here, their saris vibrant against the muted walls, joking about a grumpy mother-in-law. Stepwells were their domain, a loophole in a world of rules. They'd balance pots on their hips, navigate the steep steps like pros, and swap news from nearby villages. You smirk, picturing one slipping mid-story and blaming the cursed steps. Bet that got a laugh. The carvings around you, like those dancers from Section 5, feel different now. They're not just art, they're mirrors of the women who pass through. Goddesses, queens, or just everyday heroines. A faded relief shows a woman pouring water, her posture graceful but strong. It's a nod to the labor and life Stepwells sustained. You think back to Section 4's festivals, how women led processions, splashing colors during Holi. Here, they weren't just participants, they were the heartbeat. You climb a few steps, pausing at a wider platform. This was their stage. Women didn't just fetch water. They performed rituals, sang folk songs, or taught daughters how to braid hair. The Stepwells' acoustics carried their voices, making every whisper feel intimate. You imagine a lullaby drifting up, soothing a fussy baby, while elders nodded approval. It's cozy, like that fan hum you've got going at home. The pool below glints, a reminder of Section 2's droughts. Water was scarce, but women made it sacred, offering prayers as they drew it. Some stepwells had tiny shrines, like the idol niche from Section 4, where they'd leave marigolds or rice. You spot another alcove, maybe one of those beauty spots, and grin. Bet someone's turmeric mask sparked a village trend. These details made Stepwells theirs, a space where they could be more than wives or mothers. You sit, the stone cool against your legs. The stepwell feels alive with their presence. Women who carried more than water up those 3,500 steps from Section 1. They carried community, culture, maybe even a few scandals. You chuckle, wondering if a love note was ever scratched into these walls, hidden among the vines and monkeys. Stepwells gave women a place to breathe, to be seen, to matter. You lean back, feeling their strength in the stones, knowing this was their secret kingdom. You're back on Chan Baori's steps, the cool stone underfoot, a stark contrast to the sun-scorched world above. You imagine climbing out, squinting into the heat, and spotting a dusty caravan winding through the desert, camels grumbling, traders haggling over spices. Stepwells, like this one, weren't just local haunts. They were lifelines for ancient trade routes, anchoring commerce across India's arid west. You wipe imaginary sweat from your brow, feeling the weight of a merchant's journey, and glance back at the pool's glimmer, knowing it saved more than just villagers. The mainstream fact is that stepwells, from the 7th to 16th centuries, were critical to trade networks linking India's interior to ports like Cambay. Caravans crossing Rajasthan and Gujarat relied on these wells for water, rest, and even lodging. Built along routes like the Silk Road's offshoots, stepwells turned remote outposts into bustling pit stops, fueling economies that traded silk, indigo, and gems as far as Persia and China. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some stepwells had guest rooms, shaded chambers where traders could crash, their camels parked nearby. Picture a merchant snoring beside his spice sacks, dreaming of profits. Historians still argue whether these rooms were for hospitality or security. Did patrons build them to welcome travelers or to keep an eye on shady dealers? You climb a few steps, pausing at a wide landing. This was the trader's turf. You can almost hear the clink of coins, the rustle of silk bales, the banter of bargaining. Stepwells were like ancient truck stops, offering water, shade, and a chance to swap gossip about bandit-prone routes. You smirk, imagining a trader overselling his genuine turquoise. Some scams are timeless. The architecture helped. Broad platforms let merchants spread their wares, while the cool depths kept goods from spoiling. You spot a carved camel on the wall, its hump chipped but proud, a nod to the caravans that passed through. These stepwells weren't just pit stops, they were economic engines. Kings and guilds funded them to boost trade, knowing a well-placed well could turn a dusty trail into a gold mine. You think back to Section 3's engineering. Those silt traps and sturdy joints ensured the water stayed clean for thirsty camels and greedier merchants. You wander to an alcove, maybe one of those guest rooms, its stone smoothed by countless visitors. Traders from afar, Arabs, Sindhis, even Romans, might have rested here, scratching their names into the walls. You squint, half expecting graffiti, like Ali was here, 892 AD. The stepwell's role in trade made it a melting pot, blending cultures as much as Section 4's festivals did. You picture a Gujarati trader teaching a Persian how to tie a turban, both laughing over shared water. The pool below, mentioned in Section 2's Drought Tales, was the real MVP. Without it, trade routes would have withered. Monsoons filled these wells, but clever designs, like the ashlar masonry from Section 3, kept them functional year-round. You chuckle, imagining a camel driver praising the water's taste, unaware of the math behind it. Stepwells didn't just sustain trade, they shaped it, turning deserts into highways. You lean against a pillar, the desert's heat a faint memory. The stepwell feels like a vault, guarding stories of deals struck and journeys survived. You recall Section 6's women, how they made this place their own. Traders, too, left their mark, their coins and tales mingling with the carvings. You grin, wondering if a merchant ever haggled for that cheeky monkey from Section 5's frieze. This stepwell wasn't just a stop, it was a crossroads where water meant wealth and wanderers found home. You're perched on a worn step in Chanbaori, the carved camel from last section's wall, staring at you like it knows your secrets. The air's still cool, but you sense a shift, a faint dustiness, as if time's creeping in. The vibrant crowds, the traders' banter, the women's laughter from earlier sections, they're fading. Stepwells, once the heartbeat of deserts, began to slip into shadow as empires rose and fell. You run your hand along the stone, feeling its cracks, and wonder why these marvels were left to crumble. The mainstream fact is that stepwells declined between the 16th and 19th centuries, sidelined by changing technology and politics. Mughal and colonial rulers favored canals and pumps, while centralized water systems reduced reliance on local wells. Shifting trade routes, like those from Section 7, bypassed stepwells and invasions, think Delhi Sultanate or British East India Company, disrupted their upkeep. By the 1800s, many were abandoned, silted up, or repurposed as storage pits. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some stepwells became hideouts for bandits or rebels. Locals tell tales of Gujarat's Vavel stepwell sheltering outlaws. Its maze of steps perfect for ambushes. You grin, picturing a rogue with a twirled mustache plotting his next heist. Historians still argue whether these stories are fact or folklore. Were stepwells strategic strongholds or just convenient ruins? You climb a few steps, noticing moss creeping into the joints. Nature's reclaiming what's hers. The carvings, like that monkey from Section 5, are chipped, half buried in dust. You imagine the last festival here, maybe a century ago, the colors of Holi from Section 4 muted by neglect. Stepwells didn't just fade, they were forgotten. New rulers didn't care for their upkeep, and villagers, lured by shiny pumps, stopped hauling water up 3,500 steps. Can't blame them. Your calves are screaming just thinking about it. You pause at a landing, the pool below barely visible through silt, the engineering from Section 3, those perfect ashlar joints, couldn't fight time. Monsoons still came, but without maintenance, water turned stagnant. You think back to Section 2's droughts. Stepwells were built to defy them, yet here they are, defeated by progress. You smirk, imagining an ancient engineer shaking his fist at a colonial pipelaying crew. The walls tell the story. A cracked frieze shows a goddess, her face eroded, as if she's tired of waiting for devotees. Stepwells were sacred, social, economic, everything sections 4, 6, and 7 described. But they couldn't compete with convenience. Some were filled in, deemed mosquito traps by British officials. Others, like Chand Baori, survived as relics, their grandeur a ghost of what was. You spot a broken idol in an alcove, maybe from Section 6's women's rituals, and feel a pang. This was their sanctuary, now just a curiosity. You sit, the step gritty under you. The silence is heavy, broken only by a distant drip. You picture bandits hiding here, their whispers echoing where traders once haggled. The Stepwells, a time capsule, holding centuries of life, but it's fading fast. You recall Section 1's starlight rumors. Maybe the stars still watch, but the people don't. You chuckle, wondering if that camel carving's judging you for romanticizing ruins. The desert above feels closer now, its heat seeping through the cracks. Stepwells, like this one, didn't just decline. They were abandoned, their stories buried with them. You lean back, the stones chill, a faint echo of the bustling hub it once was. It's humbling, knowing even miracles can be forgotten, left to whisper their own elegies in the dark. You're still in Chand Baori, seated on a gritty step, the faded camel carving from Section 7 eyeing you through the gloom. The air's heavier now, dust tickling your nose, but there's a spark of hope. You imagine stepping out into the modern world, where stepwells, long buried in neglect, are stirring awake. Historians, locals, and curious travelers are dusting off these ruins, coaxing their stories back to life. You stand, brushing off your hands, ready to join the revival of these hidden temples. The mainstream fact is that since the late 20th century, stepwells have seen a resurgence of interest. Conservation efforts, led by groups like India's Archaeological Survey and global NGOs, have restored sites like Rani Ki Vav and Adalaj, turning them into UNESCO treasures and tourist draws. From the 1980s onward, projects cleared silt, repaired carvings, and revived water systems, proving stepwells aren't just relics, they're functional again. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some restored stepwells host modern art installations. Their ancient steps glowing with LED lights or echoing with soundscapes. Picture Chan Baori lit up like a sci-fi set. Talk about time travel. Historians still argue whether these modern touches honor the past or cheapen it. Are they celebration or commercialization? You climb a few steps, the stone less crumbly, as if recent hands have tended it. You picture workers hauling out debris, their buckets echoing the labor of Section 3's builders. Restoration isn't just about fixing stones, it's about rediscovering purpose. Rani Ki Vav, once a silt-choked ruin, now sparkles, its carvings from Section 5 sharp again. You smirk, imagining that six-fingered hand gleaming under a conservator's brush. Bet the sculptor's ghost is chuckling. The walls feel alive, their stories no longer whispering but shouting. You spot a restored frieze, a goddess from Section 6's women's rituals, her features crisp. These projects aren't just for tourists, they're for locals reclaiming heritage. Villages near Stepwells, like those traders' hubs from Section 7, are buzzing again. Craft fairs, guided tours, even festivals, echoing Section 4's holy splashes. You picture kids running the steps, their laughter a callback to ancient play. You pause at a landing, noticing a modern plaque, probably a donor's name, not unlike the king's boasts from Section 2. Restoration's pricey, blending government funds, global grants, and local grit. Some stepwells, like Adalaj, now pump water, easing droughts as they did centuries ago. You think back to Section 8's decline, how pumps replaced wells. Now, the old ways are circling back, proving the desert's lessons never fade. You grin, imagining a British colonial engineer gaping at a revived stepwell. Take that, progress. The pool below glints cleaner, reflecting torchlight like a promise. Conservationists use Section 3's silt traps, tweaking ancient designs with new tech. It's humbling. The builder's math still holds up. You wander to an alcove, maybe one of Section 6's beauty spots, now a photo op for influencers. You roll your eyes, bet they're captioning it spiritual vibes, without a clue. But their posts spread the word, drawing eyes to these treasures. You sit, the step smoother, as if polished by hope. The stepwell feels like a bridge, past to present, stone to story. You recall Section 1's starlight rumors. Maybe modern lights are the new constellations. The revival's not perfect. Some wells stay forgotten, funds dry up. But it's a start. You chuckle, wondering if that camel carving's impressed by the comeback. Chan Baori's breathing again. Its steps no longer just a grave, but a stage for new dreams. You're near the top of Chan Baori now, the desert's heat seeping through the stone as you climb. The camel carving, the monkey frieze, the goddess's gaze, they're all below, tucked in the cool depths, but their stories linger in your mind. You pause, catching your breath, and look out at the sun-baked plain. Stepwells like this, hidden beneath the earth, hold more than water. They carry lessons for a world grappling with thirst. You lean against a pillar, its restored surface from Section 9 smooth under your palm, and feel the weight of their enduring legacy. The mainstream fact is that stepwells offer timeless wisdom for water-scarce regions. Their designs, perfected over centuries, inspire modern architects tackling climate change. From the 6th to 18th centuries, stepwells showed how to harvest and store rainwater in arid zones, a model now studied globally. Think India, Africa, or even Australia, where droughts threaten millions. Their low-tech brilliance, like Section 3's silt traps, proves you don't need fancy gadgets to outsmart nature. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some stepwells are said to hum softly during monsoons, as water flows through their channels, like the earth's singing back. Locals near Adelaide swear it's the gods approving the rain. You smirk, imagining a stepwell karaoke session. Nature's got pipes. Historians still argue whether this hum is acoustic design or just poetic hype. Did builders plan it, or is it happy physics? You step higher, the sky a blinding square above. The carvings below, from Section 5's dancers to Section 7's camels, told stories of life, trade, faith, community. Stepwells wove those threads, and their legacy does too. Modern engineers mimic their sloped floors and deep reservoirs, blending ancient math with solar pumps. You think back to Section 8's decline, how pumps replaced wells. Now, the past's teaching the future, a quiet revenge. You grin, picturing a medieval builder high-fiving a 21st century hydrologist. The air's warmer, but the stepwell's lessons feel cool, grounding. You recall Section 6's women, their sanctuaries of laughter and ritual, their resilience, carrying water, culture, hope, mirrors what stepwells offer now. Not just survival, but connection. In a world of drying rivers, these temples remind you to dig deep, literally and not. You spot a restored lotus carving, like Section 2's symbol of purity, and it hits you. Stepwells are about persistence, blooming in the harshest deserts. You reach the final step, the world above, buzzing with possibility. Section 9's revival showed stepwells breathing again. Chand Bauri, Rani Ki Vav, Adalaj. Their legacy isn't just stone, it's a blueprint for a thirsty planet. You imagine villages rebuilding wells, kids splashing like in Section 4's festivals, traders' roots from Section 7 thriving anew. You chuckle, wondering if that humming monsoon myth means the Stepwells cheering you on. You sit, the edge of the well warm under you. The desert stretches out, but it feels less daunting. Stepwells taught you that water, like hope, can be found if you're willing to descend, to work, to believe. That cheeky monkey from Section 5 would probably wink at the thought. You take a deep breath, ready to carry this story back to the surface, where the world's waiting to listen. You're back at the edge now, the Stepwells depths, a quiet hum in your memory. Let the desert's heat fade. Let the carvings soften into shadows. You're safe, wrapped in the story of stone and water, of people who built miracles against the odds. Picture the pool below, its ripples slowing, reflecting a single star. Your breath steadies, matching the gentle lap of ancient waters. The Stepwells' lessons, resilience, community, ingenuity, cradle you like a lullaby. Close your eyes. Let the earth's cool embrace pull you under and drift into dreams where hidden temples whisper their secrets. Sleep well, knowing you've walked their steps,